Looks pretty good, huh? Stick around. I'm gonna show you guys how I made this. All right, first we're gonna pick out the size of the mold that you want. So it's gonna be 12 by 24. And we're gonna use this beautiful piece of black walnut with all these voids in it. Next, you're gonna wanna measure this out. Place your lines how you wanna cut it. Now I am using my Wind track saw to make a nice clean cut. Now this is going to be a very important step. You do not want to mess around leaving any of this loose stuff on the outside or filled in on any of these voids. As you can see, I'm taking my chisel and I'm making sure I get all these loose pieces out. What's important about this is whenever you do go to actually pour your epoxy, you want to make sure it's bonding to a nice piece of wood, not all this loose bark that's going to give you problems down the road. This has to be my favorite attachment for the drill. This is going to help you get into these tight little spots that otherwise you wouldn't be able to with sandpaper or chisels. I will also leave a link in the description how to buy these. Now this is going to be another must-have for whenever you're prepping your live edge slabs. It's going to be different assortments of these wire brushes for your drill. Now after using all those bits and wire brushes, I still come back last thing with sandpaper. Just do it by hand, make sure I didn't miss any spots. Alright, now we have our piece in our mold, and now I'm clamping it down, because if you do not, guess what? It's going to float in the resin. Alright, so we're mixing up a 2-to-1 deep pour with ice epoxy, and we're going to use Liberty Copper from Black Diamond Pigments. This is always a fun part, watching the pigment color that you choose come to life once you're mixing it. Now, you're going to want to mix these deep pours for at least 5 to 6 minutes. Combine that part A and part B. And that was a good color choice, I would say, to mix with this walnut, because that looks great. At this point in the video, if you've liked everything you've seen so far, do me a big favor. Give this thing a like and even drop a comment. Let me know what you have done different, and even moving forward on this YouTube channel, let me know what else you would like to see. More in-depth builds, longer form content, shorter form content. Just drop me something, let me know. Thank you. Now I let that epoxy cure for about a week, and now it's time to take it out. This is what I like about these HDPE molds. Take a mallet, a couple whacks, and then it's out. Now we're going to set up the planer, get this dialed into the right height. This is always a fun part also, because now you actually get to see this piece come to life and, you know, kind of get a little glimpse of what it's going to look like before you start sanding it and get finish on it. Star Bond medium thick CA glue. Now this was a lifesaver for this cutting board. What you see me doing now, I'm filling in all these small little cracks and voids. You're going to fill it in, take your activator, spray it, wait a couple seconds, make multiple passes with your sander, and knock some of that down. You're going to notice that it's not going to fill it in all the way on the first try. You're going to have to do this multiple times. And I don't want to bore you too much with this, but I probably spent about, I'd say at least an hour or two going over this whole thing, making sure that I didn't have any of these voids exposed. Now here's another section of the board that was totally riddled with these little baby little holes that needed tons and tons of work. This is honestly part of the board that I probably spent the most time on. As you can see, you pour some CA glue in and it just totally sucks it up. But in order to make a 100% stellar piece, you got to put the time and effort in. We're now going to head over to the table saw and get this trimmed up to final dimensions. And also with a combination of my miter saw, it's going to be 1 foot by 2 foot for final dimension. Now I'm going to be taking my handheld router and installing the bit that I use for cutting these juice grooves, and that is going to be a round nose bit. Also using my form from Kiwi's Wood Shop. You can check them out on Instagram if you'd like to purchase one of these. Now this is honestly one of the most stressful parts of this build because you could easily mess this cutting board up. Most guys might cut these with CNCs, but I do everything by hand. This is a pretty cool tool that I like to use once I do cut the juice grooves in. I'll come back with this card scraper. It's basically just going to clean up any burn marks or any imperfections that you had. It's time now to put the finishing profile on the edge. For this one, I chose to do a chamfer. You could use whatever you like. Some people like the round over look, or you can get fancy with some of the other ones, but I prefer the chamfer on these. I feel like it looks the best. Back to the boring part. Sanding and sanding and sanding. I get a lot of questions. What process do I use? So I'll start at 100 grit. And for this one, I ran this all the way up to 800. That's pretty much my go-to. Now, this is just a cheap little trick. Simple as it looks. Cut a piece of dowel, wrap it with sandpaper, and then just start chiseling away inside your juice groove. Another crucial tip, and also a pointer that I do, after every grit, I'm going to spray this off with compressed air, and then I'm also going to come back with isopropyl alcohol and wipe that off. And what you're going to want to also do is spray this with water and raise the grain. This is going to give you a way better finish for the outcome. Getting down to the nitty gritty now. It's time to install these brass feet. So what I'm using here is a square just to make sure that all these holes are going to be drilled in the same spot on each 4 corners. And it actually worked out pretty good. Now check out how good these look. Those are from Feldhaus Family Works. They make these and you can buy them on Etsy. They also come with those rubber feet for the top of them, and they just look absolutely amazing. Just really sets this piece off. This is going to be the final step, is drilling this hole to install my logo. I know some guys use the brand, but to me, I feel like this is a simpler, cleaner look, and you really can't mess this up. And I just think it adds a nice touch. Now, this is absolutely the funnest part, is applying the finish. Now, for this board, I chose Odie's oil. I'm just applying it with a white woven pad. You just want to thoroughly put this in. You don't want to soak it. A little bit goes a long way. Now, I typically wait about an hour or two, and then you come back with a white terry cloth and just buff it off. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you. And here you go. The final piece completed, oil buffed off, and man, that is a showpiece for a cutting board for any kitchen.